Burnout doesn't just exhaust you, it actually confuses you. Because did you know many high performers often reach a moment where they ask, did I choose the wrong career? Was I ever meant to do this? And I've heard those questions frequently over the last 7 to 10 years, but I've also heard, I know I was meant to do this, but I don't know how I can keep going. I know these questions can feel terrifying. And when you're questioning what your purpose is, was I really supposed to be doing this? Or how can I keep doing what I know I meant to? That can feel terrifying because it can leave you feeling lost and uncertain of where to go from here. Can you make the right changes that you need to? As you see, burnout doesn't erase your purpose, it just distorts the perception and it leaves you thinking, I don't know if I can keep doing this. This level of performance and functioning is not sustainable because exhaustion does change how your brain interprets meaning and motivation. And so burnout does attack your sense of purpose. It leaves you questioning it and it leaves you questioning what was I here on this earth to do? And we all have a purpose. And we want to work to change that because chronic stress does narrow those perspectives, right? Because I've talked in previous videos when we're under a state of chronic stress, our ability to reason and make decisions and think through situations logically is not online. Chronic stress, our body thinks we're in survival mode and it just wants to get us safe. And so when all our body and our system is trying to do is get us safe, we're only thinking in those terms, right? Which is a narrow perspective versus this broad perspective where we can think through a lot of things. And so when we have that narrow perspective, we do experience things like cognitive fatigue because that which reduces our long-term thinking, right? So I can't think 3 weeks down the road when I'm just trying to survive this next 10 minutes I'm in and I feel like it's a lifetime. You might also feel that emotional depletion, which does reduce your intrinsic motivation. Because when you're emotionally depleted, you don't feel like you can do anything else. So why try? Right? It's hard to find that motivation because emotionally you just feel like you can't take on anymore. And that's understandable if you are at this point where you're burnt out and it's leaving you questioning what you're doing. You might also notice that your passion becomes inaccessible because you're stuck in survival mode. So the longer that survival mode is active, your passion for what you do for your purpose is not going to feel like it's there. It's going to be hard to connect to, right? And so when I mentioned I've heard people say before, I know I was meant to do this, but I don't know how I keep going. That's the challenge between knowing what they were meant to do in this world, but emotionally and mentally questioning, I don't know if I can keep caring anymore. I don't know if I can keep going. And that's the passion, right? There's a disconnect because the system is so broken and there's so much they're trying to function within. And oftentimes, what once felt meaningful now feels heavy. And I hear this a lot from students coming out of their programs, especially in the healthcare and behavioral health fields. They come out going, this isn't this isn't what I thought I was walking into, but I know I'm supposed to do this. And so it just now feels like a heavy burden to keep trying. So we want to, as high performers, make sure that we're recognizing our signals that we are overwhelmed and exhausted and potentially burnt out. And so some of those signals would be, are you exhausted, right? Where exhaustion is interpreted as loss of purpose. So when you're questioning, am I supposed to keep doing this? Is this what I meant to do? Can I keep going? Sometimes we have to take a pause and look, is this really exhaustion making me question my purpose? Disengagement can often be interpreted as a career misalignment. So if you're noticing that you're starting to pull back, starting to not engage with colleagues much anymore, there might be, whether it's you or somebody else could be questioning, are they in the wrong career? Am I in the wrong career? But the truth is that disengagement, that pulling back is just you trying to get through the day, get through what your body is experiencing as stress or a sense of being unsafe. We also tend to interpret the cynicism. So if you hear people constantly making negative comments of, oh, I can't believe this is going on here, and I can't believe so and so is doing that, and this is the worst place to be, this can often be interpreted as failure or weakness in the person who's making these comments. But in truth is they're trying to express what they're struggling with, but they don't know how to do that in healthy ways, and they don't know how else to function in what feels like a broken environment and system. And so many people do tend to assume that if this is my calling, it wouldn't feel this hard. And I do think there's some truth to that because we want to have joy in our purpose and joy in what we're doing, and we should enjoy it and we should have some passion. We also work within a lot of broken systems in this world, and that is part of what makes it feel hard. And and we have to push through those things that feel hard because in reality, if you are burnt out, it is blocking your access to your purpose, right? So if we can overcome the burnout and decrease those symptoms, you can start to feel reconnected to your purpose. And when you are connected to your purpose, the parts that feel hard also feel manageable. So why does your purpose feel different during burnout? Well, this happens because motivation circuits, so the things that usually keep you motivated, are suppressed, right? You're under that state of chronic stress where you just don't know if you can make a shift. And that's part of what motivation's about. It's saying I can do the hard things. I can do these things that I want to accomplish. And if you're under chronic stress, you don't know if you can do those things. Typically, we will see creativity and inspiration that decline. So, are you somebody who usually shows up to work and has a lot of ideas, thinking outside the box on different ways to accomplish things? And instead, you're showing up like, I don't even know what suggestions to offer. Yeah, right. That creativity has kind of been blocked. For a lot of professionals, when they start to feel emotionally numb, that has replaced the passion they once had. So you walk into a patient's room and you're usually compassionate and excited to be there and visit with them and help them with what you're there to help them with. And now you're walking in kind of with a flat expression, not much emotion behind your greeting, and you just go through the motions. That's because you've been in a state of chronic stress. Leaders, if you're a leader, you will still perform, but you're going to feel very disconnected. Again, you're going to feel like you're going through the motions. As leaders, it's a lot harder to recognize the symptoms sometimes. And we'll talk about that in one of the next videos. But it's something to pay attention to is how disconnected are you getting? Are you just going through the motions? And oftentimes your purpose just becomes quiet, but it's not gone. It's still there. We just have to find it again. And so, how do we start the recovery process so that we can restore your purpose? Right? We have to start with recognizing the symptoms of burnout. We have to recognize your symptoms because it shows up slightly different in each of us, even though there's a lot of similarities. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on restoring your energy capacity because that's going to help restore your perspective. So if you're feeling energized and feeling rested and rejuvenated to get through the day, your perspective is going to be much better. You're going to be reconnecting to that purpose. We have to make sure that you're regulating your nervous system so that you can have that clarity back, that mental clarity to do the things you need to do and make those decisions. When we focus on the physical recovery of our bodies, we also restore our emotional access, meaning we can have that empathy again. We can connect with the patients and the people that we're trying to support, but we have to take care of our physical bodies so we can do that. You see, purpose often reappears once our nervous systems are stabilized. So when we calm the body, we calm the fight or flight response, your purpose will show back up. You'll be able to reconnect to it. And this is when the question shifts from should I quit to how do I sustain this work? We want to sustain what we're doing. That's important. But I often hear, should I quit? Because that's the first response when we're stuck in survival mode. Let me just remove myself from the situation. And so if you're questioning your calling and questioning if you can keep going, if you're questioning if you're in the right purpose, I encourage you to start with determining, are you burnt out and have you been functioning under chronic stress for too long? And that's why I created the burnout assessment so that you can understand truly what's going on with you so that you don't have to get lost and separated from your purpose. This assessment helps you understand whether you're burnt out and not misaligned. And it's going to help you identify and drive what's driving your feelings. It's going to help you identify that. And so check it out on the link below because I want to remind you burnout distorts your meaning. It just gives you a false perception because the exhaustion does cloud your purpose, but you can overcome it. So before you abandon your calling, take the time to understand what stress is doing to you. You got this.